things to people to try to build themselves up.
I think they actually met their match because you can't troll a troll. So we're actually going to take our music break, and then we're going to come back. We're going to move away from this topic, and we're going to move into Star Wars.
Yeah, much nicer topic.
Absolutely. So enjoy this music, and we will be right back. Hey guys, welcome back to the Captain Fizz and Mask Guy show. So we are moving away from our original topic because,
that's kind of depressing, to be honest.
It is. It is to a point because we can move past this stuff. But we're going to talk about Star Wars and more importantly, the hidden factors of what we saw in the trailer and compare it to what we've seen in some of the merchandise as well as the posters.
Okay, so what there is, and it's not just a poster, there is actually a cutout, and I'll see if I can actually, and this is at a theater, and I'll see if I can post the picture on our Facebook page. It was something that was actually posted by IMAX on Twitter. And it shows, there's a section you could step through. And on one side, it's all the light side characters with Rey in the middle. And on the other side is the dark side characters with Kylo Ren in the middle. But what's interesting is that Luke Skywalker appears on both sides. Both the light and the dark side.
As the top figurehead. And the reason why this is so important is that in the posters and a lot of the advertisements that they've used previously for other Star Wars movies. Actually, I believe every single Star Wars movie.
Almost every other one, a dark side character has been the figure that's loomed at the top of each of these posters. So the question is, whether, this might suggest that Luke Skywalker is going to turn to the dark side in the last of the Jedi.
Well, I'm not quite. I want to go with that theory. I do at some in some way, but I don't think that he's going to turn to the dark side, so to speak, in this one. I think you're going to start seeing it, much like you saw Anakin start turning to the dark side in, I think it was Attack of the Clones. The second movie. I'm really bad on names. They eventually all start to kind of intermingle with each other. But anyways, you start seeing him turn dark in the second movie of the second trilogy. So you really see him turn dark in the third one. I think what you're going to see is you're going to see the same kind of aspect in this movie. And I may be wrong. I may be right. But that's the whole point of these trailers and all this stuff, is so we can speculate.
And here is my thinking. And anyone who's been a long-time listener of the podcast knows that I've been kind of keeping my ear on this. Before George Lucas sold Star Wars to Disney, he was kind of muddling around with the idea of there not necessarily being a dark side or a light side, but just one full encompassing force. And if the Star Wars Clone Wars series, we saw the introduction of the characters called the Wills, who were I don't know enough about to go off and give you a lot of details, other than the fact that Yoda goes and visits them and gets a broader view of what the Force is. And so there was more, it's kind of like, again, I keep bringing up the Bendu, because who was in Season 3 of Star Wars Rebels, and says, there's the dark, there's light, and then there's me in the middle, the Bendu. And I think that's kind of where and we see in the season finale of Season 3 where the Bendu goes off and uses both the light and the dark to fight Admiral Thrawn. And I think that's maybe where we're going here. Where there's at one point in both the trailers where we see a book which we assume is the Book of the Knowledge from the Wills. And Luke might be going off and going into a direction where he realizes that as long as there's Jedi, there's going to be Sith. Or in this case, the Knights of Ren. And so the only way to combat that is to go off and to form a Force society that embraces both sides of the Force. Now, I mean, the second trailer definitely went off and has kind of thrown out a couple of red herrings and, and kind of, teased and maybe with some misdirection and things here. I do think that, at the very beginning, Luke is going to not want to have anything to do with Rey because he sees the same sort of Force skill that he saw in his nephew Ben. But I think as we go through, more of the movie, we are going to go off and to see him going off and trying to embrace, I don't know if he will or not try to teach Rey, but I think it's very interesting that we have got two extremely strong Force users who both seem to be able to pull for both the light side and the dark side of the Force, as well as they have. I actually had a conversation with a coworker yesterday about this. It's the whole reason why Snoke went off and was so attracted to Ben Solo, who became Kylo Ren, is because he saw this young man who could go off and who could pull from both sides of the Force. And from The Force Awakens, we see, very much the same thing with Rey, where she's able to use, with no training whatsoever, is able to pull from both sides of the Force as well. And and not get sucked in too much into the dark side and be able to, keep her balance with no training. And so I do feel that the part of the reason why we see Luke Skywalker on both sides of that billboard or that construction that they have at the IMAX theater is because it is kind of teasing the aspect that we are going to see him trying to go off and eventually teach a more balanced version of the Force.
See, and I like that theory, but at the same point, I have this very tough time believing that the Empire, as of Disney, would go that direction. Because up to now, every single part in this story has been a splitting mirror of its predecessors. The first movie in the series, you have this introduction of a Force character, and all this stuff. The second movie is the training, and the third is a complete meltdown.
Well, if we're gonna be honest, the first movie is the introduction of the characters. That's what we saw in episode 1 and saw.
Absolutely.
And then the second one is kind of the love story, as developing, as well as things starting to get darker. Empire got dark. We start to see the beginnings of how dark things are going to get in the Attack of the Clones. And so, this one definitely is going to be very, very dark. I could have told you that before we even saw the two trailers that have come out.
Oh, absolutely. But
I think it's going to be different, though.
Is the question the question actually is it going to be too dark?
And I don't know if I can tell you this. If I have an answer, I will tell you this: that when the cast were getting ready to go off and do the movie, several of them came forward and they said, "We can't tell you any details, but we can tell you this: this will be the darkest Star Wars movie yet." And I'm kind of interested, and you're like, "Oh yeah, well they're gonna you bringing up Disney going off and trying to get away from the not going away from the formula." The thing is, though, it's a lot of those executives who have been really pushing this aspect outside of to get away from the dark, to get away from the light. And as a person who's grown up, in a Christian household, there's part of me that it's kind of annoyed about this, about, oh, there's no light, there's no dark. Well, in the real world, there is light and there is dark. And so to get away from, to suggest there isn't, and to take, symbols that truly show the two sides of this. Now they're going off and they've openly said, well, no, you know what? We're going to try to go in the middle here. Well, we don't want there to be dark. There's no real evil. There's no real, good. It's all just one thing. And I honestly believe, just from everything that I've read, from everything I've seen in videos from people who are much more intelligent about the Star Wars universe than I am, this is probably the direction that they're going to go into. Are we going to see it fully embraced in this movie? Probably not. But I
don't even think we're going to see it fully embraced in the next movie either, if that's the route they go.
You know what? And I would love, in about 2 months' time after we've seen The Last Jedi, to go off into, come back to this conversation. And I mean, the fact of the matter is, you and I are probably going to be debating this on almost a weekly basis from now until the movie comes out.
Pretty much, and that's why Star Wars is the greatest. Because, and the one thing that Disney has been able to do that I don't think anyone else even comes close to, and that's make people guess. With most trailers or things, you kind of get the gist of what's going to happen in the movie before the movie comes out. With Star Wars, we seem to be at odds whether or not we know what's going to happen.
I really feel that there was that second trailer was intentionally designed the way it was to do a lot of bait and switch on us.
I completely agree. And during last week's episode, we actually both mentioned that this was a misdirection. It could, we could be wrong. Generally, we don't tend to be wrong 100% of the time.
After how closely guarded The Force Awakens was, I have a hard time believing that they're going to go off and just open it up, with these trailers and allow us all to, say, oh, this is what they're going to do. And so I definitely would not be surprised if we're completely wrong. Now, we don't have a lot more time, and I would like to get a little into the Han Solo movie, which is going to be directed by Ron Howard, which is set to come out next year in December.
Yeah, now you read into this a lot more than I have. I haven't had the chance to read into that one, just because that one really, to me, is an extremely exciting aspect. I after Rogue One, I'm not a big fan of the side movies per se.
Rogue One.
Oh no, it was good. Don't get me wrong, it was a really good movie, but I feel like it takes away from between the episode 7 and episode 8. It really kind of draws it out more, and you have to really go back and rewatch the Force Awakens just to get ready for the next one. So there's that aspect where I think it ruins it.
Well, I do like the idea of them actually spacing out this trilogy and then having these other movies in between them. For what I understand, the Han Solo movie will simply be called Solo: A Star Wars Movie, and for people who much like me were big fans of the Star Wars comics. Before Walt Disney came out, 2 comedic characters appear to be being reintroduced into new Star Wars canon. Their characters called Blank and Tag, and they actually had a series of comics where they the original couple comics took place during. Sorry, I'm having a bit of a bubble here. During The New Hope, Empire Strikes Back, and Return of the Jedi, and how they were responsible, for a lot of the things that happened behind the scenes. And, there was a lot of debate, well, why didn't Chewbacca get a medal? Well, it's because Blank and Tag accidentally broke Chewbacca's medal. And they always seemed to be in the wrong place at the right time. They were pretending to be stormtroopers, and they're the ones that met up with the Millennium Falcon when it was coming up to the Death Star. They were the stormtroopers that were standing in front of the force field generator when Obi-Wan Kenobi came to turn it off, and several curses, and